Welcome back, guys. We are about 8 weeks out for fighting for my opportunity to reclaim my spot on Team Canada. I'm starting a new series which is going to be a little fun. So I am actually rereading a book called Atomic Habits, which I think is really great. And generally, I'm not someone who's super into self-help books. I find a lot of them corny and actually not that helpful. But this is one that's really resonated with me and I found it helpful. So while we kind of preview my journey towards my next competition, I'm also going to sprinkle in a little bit of knowledge and learnings and takeaways from this book. So we're going to kind of get into, why some people are better at creating positive habits, why people fall out of habits. And I think this is a really good time as we're just heading into the new year. So it's a good time to kind of create new habits that can actually be productive in helping you to create your goals and not quit. So let's get into it. Before we get into the first major takeaway, let's take a look at what my last SBD workout looked like. So this was actually yesterday on Friday. I had a 6x2 at 540 pounds on squats. And then on bench, I think it was a 5 or 6x2 at 350 pounds. And on deads, we finished off with, I think it was a 4x4 at 560 pounds. Not the heaviest, but just getting some more volume. So we'll take a look at that.
This isn't your top step, is it?
Yeah, it's my workout. About 8 weeks out.
Where is it?
Saskatoon.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
So no vacation there. We'll start it in Saskatoon.
It's my road back to Worlds.
So is this your
Road back to Worlds. Here we go. And here's a quick example. When we look at different sports and whatever discipline, winners and losers always have the same goal. Knowing the competition is going out to compete and saying, I am looking to lose, but the systems and their approaches are different. And another non-athletic example is, let's say you are someone who's very messy and you clean your room one time, but you don't actually have a system in place in order to help clean your room. So that one time when you clean your room, you are treating the symptom, but you don't actually have a system in order to, keep that tidiness over time, if that makes sense. Bit of work, but it's moving. The other thing I wanted to touch on was, which I'm going to actually, tie into creating the better systems, is I'm sure you've all heard of, the case of marginal gains or the 1% rule. And another good example is, I don't remember the year, I think it was 2001, when the British cycling team, who after just years and years and years, they've just been falling flat, and the organization was really looking for ways on how they can, start getting better results out of their athletes and out of their cyclists. So they started to implement the 1% rule and the rule of marginal gains, and they looked for all the small ways that they can make subtle improvements to their athletes, which would range anywhere from, improving sleep, looking at how they can improve the athlete's equipment, looking at, the wheels, the clothing they're wearing, their sleep cycles, their training, and it was just all these little things that you wouldn't think of on an everyday basis. And putting them all together, they all made, slight improvements, but over time, it started to contribute to the British team, doing a lot better over time. And these marginal gains actually end up creating huge achievements over the long haul. So this is kind of an example of how, sometimes when you put these small marginal gains, marginal improvements in place, or you start, creating systems to improve these processes, you won't see a big improvement at first, but over time, when you start stacking these little improvements, these new habits, then after, then what you're seeing from month 1 to 12 months down the road, to 3 years down the road, to 5 years down the road, to 10 years down the road, it's going to be a huge improvement. That's how we can really build marginal gains into our systems and processes to help see improvements. So that's all fun. We've talked about creating marginal improvements and marginal gains and creating systems versus just goal setting, but how do we actually implement this? So on the next series, we want to get into strategies of how we can actually implement what I talked about today, and we'll get in a bit deeper. So if you want to hear that, make sure to subscribe and don't miss the next episode.